Hey everybody, it's Clay Just here with the Philosophy Society. So we went through a discussion which you can see behind me. It's in a different playlist on YouTube. It'll be under the Philosophy Society playlist. And so you can watch that one. Hey, Dimitri. I just went through one of the whiteboard discussions. I think you'll like it. You can watch. I'm going to edit it later and you can see it on YouTube after. And we got 3 new people today, which was super cool. They just came in the room. They're just like, hey, we see you here every week. I was like, that's cool, man. So now we're going to start talking about Synergize, which is super cool. All right, so fishing for the third alternative, 1 of 3. So I'm going to, like I usually do, read through the slides online first. Okay. Yeah, fishing for the third alternative. So interdependent effectiveness determined by level of communication. So this kind of speaks for itself. The way, and this is somewhat what I'm talking about too, but the way that people, or wait a minute, 1 sec. We had to actually talk about something. I wanted to show something from the group that somebody posted recently. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so someone from the group posted this, how frequently that we've been using the term synergy. This is from Google Ngram Viewer. And so it shows that in the mid 60s, it started to increase up until its most current use in 2000, and then it went forward. So this book was written in 1989. We'll check here. Yeah, the book was written in 89. So at the time he wrote the book, it was starting to increase. And then today it's plateaued at a specific level. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I want to look at is just the dictionary depth, because last time I was kind of hard on Covey about, I was criticizing him for psychobabble and pretty harsh on synergy. Yeah. And so the reason I was like that is because of his lack of clear definition at the beginning of the chapter. Mm-hmm. So if I was going to talk, you know how he has some quote at the beginning of the chapter from some other person, he should replace this with the quote, or the next thing he says is going to be what the definition is. You shouldn't be going all over the place because people don't know what you're talking about. So that's a great definition. So synergy is the interaction or cooperation of 2 or more organizations, substances, and other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. Right? And this is in line with what he's saying, and it's actually a bit better. It's much better, right? And his main principle is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so I just wanted to spend a minute just looking at that. And okay, so looking at the third alternative. So the psychobabble critique, I think to some degree, yes, because he's not being clear enough in his definition up until now. He's talking about the principle, but like I said, you're not identifying the phenomena. But when we read that one, the interaction of 2 or more people, agents, organizations, or whatever that produces a greater effect than their individual efforts, that's specific. Now we know what we're looking for, we can observe it, right? And we know what to include in the category and what to exclude from the category. Okay, so independent effectiveness determined by the level of communication. So that goes back to the previous habit. So he's giving this example of the family vacation. So there's a conflict here. The husband's wants to go fishing, and the wife's mother is dying. And so because they both have different interests, just like I was talking about earlier in the previous video, there could be a negative experience between the two because they have different things that they want to do, right? And it can also create a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. So even if the husband goes on the fishing trip, the wife will be upset and, got it? I think it's the slide 13 around there. Oh. The wife will be upset, and then she can, because she doesn't feel she's in the right place, make the experience negative. Because she's looking at it from that viewpoint that it's going to be negative, therefore she creates it to be negative. Or he does the same. I should be fishing. I'm here with my wife's mother. She's going to be fine. That kind of thing. Marriages, for example, can deteriorate through hostility from situations like this. Okay, sure. So it's an unsynergistic, lose-lose example. Second slide. Even though they see the situation differently, by cultivating habits of effective interdependence, they can come closer together using a different paradigm. Okay, so that's good, right? So He's going back to the previous example of the young lady and the old lady, the paradigm shift thing, or we can talk about the story about when he was on the subway car and how he initially got upset with the father not taking care of his kids. And then once he talked to the guy, he understood from his perspective. Then he had a paradigm shift. He's like, okay, now I see it differently. Right. And so, yeah, and you can cultivate these different habits. So seeking to understand, coming from a win-win perspective, and then you can come together, even though you're in what would appear to be conflicting, right? Believing in a third alternative, so it's not one or the other, which is a false dichotomy, right? So when he says that, he's just saying that it doesn't always have to be A or B, right? It could be this or that. There could be many different options. And through discussion and understanding what our needs are, we can explore what all of the options are, right? We can understand our values, we can look at the world, and then we can figure out how we can work together to make that good for everybody, right? And the win-win is the mutual beneficial thing, and better than any of the original position. That's the goal. So we can also talk about Hegel's thesis, which is some proposition of a thing, the antithesis, which is the contradictory view of the thing, right? And then the synthesis, which is the combination that is greater than both independently.
The famous Hegel method.
Yeah, it's the way that like ideas develop over time.
Yeah.
Right?
What do you call that? That's a term for that.
I forget specifically.
Yeah.
Thesis, antithesis.
Yeah, it's a
synthesis
like
model.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into it.
Yeah.
I haven't read Hegel for a long time, but
yeah. Hegel,
so create a comprehensive picture of the values and concerns to make a decision. So he's going more in depth into what the intention is, what is the end goal, and what problems could occur from different options that we have, right? Communicate back and forth until they both find a solution they agree with. So that's good. Assuming that there is a solution, because sometimes it could be a no deal thing too. Somebody wants something that you don't want, you can say, hey, I don't want that, right? If you're not comfortable with it or whatever, you know? Ideal environment for synergy is created by combining high emotional bank accounts. So having positive dispositions towards each other, doing things that the other person values to make for the relationship. Win-win thinking. And so that's like, what goals can we have goals together that we both gain from? And seeking to understand, which is being empathetic. Okay, so he gives the example. So he's like, another example is the Buddhist middle way, like the higher apex of a triangle. And he says synergy builds production capability and makes transformations out of transactions. So again, this is a leadership kind of critique. Instead of a transaction like, I'll give you this, you give me that, it becomes transformational where we grow together, right? Okay, let's look at the book. So page 317, fishing for a third alternative. So I'm just going to read here. To get a better idea, one sec, just make sure no one's needs to get in the building. Okay. To get a better idea of how our level of communication affects our interdependent effectiveness, envision the following scenario. So this is the example of the husband who wants to go on vacation, camping and fishing. He planned it all year, made arrangements, rented the boat, sons are excited. The wife wants to use this vacation time to see her mother. The difference can cause a negative experience. 318, the wife says, my mother is more important than fishing. Husband and sons are more important than your mother. They disagree. They could split up where he takes the kids fishing. She, can go see the mother. The husband can give in, begrudgingly, conscious or unconsciously, evidence to fulfill his prophecy of how miserable the week will be for everyone. She can give in. She can be withdrawn over reactive developments, and her mother's health can get worse, and then she would never forgive herself, and he would feel bad. They can compromise, rehearsed over the years of evidence of insensitivity, bad priority decision on either part, source of contention for years, and can polarize the family because they both don't get what they want. That's a lose-lose. The husband and wife can see the situation differently. So the way that they see things can polarize them, separate them, creating wedges in the relationship. Or it can bring them closer together on a higher level, because then they can see both perspectives. If they can have cultivated the habits of effective interdependence, they approach their differences from an entirely different paradigm. 319. If they have a high emotional bank account, trust and open communication in their marriage. they can have that. They can think win-win and believe in alternative options. It doesn't have to be third. It could be like a million, doesn't, you know. A solution that is mutually beneficial and is better than what either of them originally proposed. Listen empathetically and seek first to understand. Create within themselves and between them a comprehensive picture of the values and the concerns that need to be taken into account in making a decision. Combination of those ingredients, the high emotional bank account, thinking win-win, seeking first to understand, creates the ideal environment for synergy. So these three things, these three principles would be principles of almost any social engagement, right? It's like the rules of the game that we're going to uphold. Buddhism calls this the middle way. Middle in the sense does not mean compromise. It means higher, like the apex of a triangle. Middle or higher way, this husband and wife realize that they love each other. The relationship is part of their synergy. They communicate. The husband deep down feels his wife's desire to see her mother. He understands how she wants to relive her sister because her sister's the primary caregiver. They don't know how long she will be alive still, and the mother is more important than fishing. The wife understands her husband's desire to have the family together, so now they're empathizing, right? And to provide a greater experience for the boys. She realized the investment has been made in the lessons and equipment to prepare for this vacation. There's an importance of creating good memories with them. They pool the desires. They're not on opposite sides of the problem. They're together on one side, looking at the problem, understanding the needs, and working to create a third alternative will meet them. Arrange another time within the month to visit your mother, or we could I could take over responsibilities at home for the weekend, and we can get some help, and then you can go. We can locate, so they're just brainstorming now. You can locate place to camp that's close to the mother, blah, 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 320. Plan some recreational activities with the cousins, so other people there, they can benefit. So he's just saying they synergize. Each individual decision or perspective is less than the perspective they have after they work together, right?
Now, I got a question. So you talk about, let's give a good example, like, but they say what first of all, you said that this is the way to go when we socially interact. But look at the protest, the strikes. Canada Post just in a protest or strike, right? People strike, union or whatever. This is how they deal with each other. They are not like like here. Oh yeah, we have empathize. Emotional bank account. But a country also like a family. Because there's all different sectors. Because they also affect us. But we also know that where they're coming from. So why? Well, my question is why. This format, this method is different from what he said here. Like people go to strike, union. Like
it's because they might not be coming from a win-win perspective. They're not doing those things. They're not seeking to understand, and that's why you read the book, right? That's why he would talk seminars and teach stuff. That's why I'm here doing things, because I think that knowledge is real,
But also, the other example, like the elections, those are presidential debate in Canada or US, they are attacking each other. They are not like let's find out a third alternative.
Well, you can see maybe that's a flaw too. Like one of the criticisms of the Democrats was that Harris did not have this. Like she spent a lot of time just criticizing Trump. Like I was a district attorney, he's a criminal, I'm better than him. I don't think that was all the case, but like he just, I don't know. Like other criticisms could be that she just wasn't well known enough,
But it's also it seems that the democracy system, the system actually on purpose design an opposition party. Like in Canada, you have a shadow cabinet.
Okay.
The opposition leader.
Yeah.
They have the shadow minister for each minister that Trudeau has, right? Mm-hmm. So it looks like the system, the democracy system around the world, it seems they adopt a different method. It seems they on purposely engage in this kind of a fighting, like a debating, like a criticizing each other. You see the Congress, the seats, how they design. Our liberals here.
It's
British
oppositional.
Oppositional. It's like so.
It's based on an adversarial system. And I don't really think that's the best, personally.
Mm.
I don't like adversarial systems. I don't have that here.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think it goes against principles in this book.
Yeah. So I was just curious. Why the human, no, and why they develop, union, why they develop, strike.
Well, unions are a means to protect workers' rights and increase the quality of the workplace. But I think that you could implement like programs or ways of managing that would have similar effects. At first, identify what are the problems, and let's just not assume unions are like over 100 years old. So maybe that if you had studied empirically, you could even argue that unions are not the best way, for the worker. Maybe it's not best for the worker. You know what I mean? But we have to have some evidence to support that argument. So I'm just saying, let's just not dogmatically just say that unions are always, this has to be this way. Like that's not being philosophical.
Well, I guess it's not union. It's just let's just say you strike. Strike has been also 100 years. Ever since the capitalism is there was a strike, right? 100 years ago, there's a strike already.
Yeah.
Now strike is a major. We saw that very often. From the different sectors. Whether it's a teacher, whether we mentioned unions because in many cases unions are the one that organize the strikes.
Yeah, sure. Well, again, it's a form of protest. It's just an employment process, and
yeah, I'm just curious.
Like about which part though? That's just a move. So if we go back to what I talked about in the previous lecture, right? That's just one of the moves. Strike is like a move, and you can choose to do strike or not. It could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? But in the negotiation process, Covey would argue that the emotional bank account was like, am I being antagonistic? And is my individual self not good? Is my group engaging in a way with the employer that's unhealthy, right? How can we have a harmonious, that's why I said social harmony.
Yeah, I can, but I was wondering, maybe, I don't know, maybe just some thought, maybe the husband and wife case is a little bit different from the union and the owner, because there's a power. Because in a family, husband and wife supposed to be very equal. They are not like in an employment situation. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Employment situation a little bit different.
Yeah.
There's a power struggle. It's hard to imagine an employee kind of seeking like a talking effort. The owner would. It's rare to see the owner will talk very empathy with the employee. They always use the employee just a tool.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's different leadership styles. You can have a dictator leadership style.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Elon Musk, you're fired.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the Apprentice or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's again, and that's where like we just read that quote, like the last thing on the slide here, synergy, which assumes the other habits, right? So it's kind of all of them up at this point. They're all together. It's like saying calculus. You need addition before you can have calculus, right? Makes a transactional context, turns it into a transformational context. So it doesn't have to be a dictator thing that, I'm telling you what to do. You're like, this is what I'm going to do because it's good. And I can go, okay, that's cool. And we work together and talk about it, right? All right, let's continue. So 320. They synergize, communicate back and forth so they come up with a solution they both feel good about. Better than either of the solutions they originally proposed. It's better than compromise. So synergy is distinct from compromise. And again, synergy is the output. It is something that happens after the result of a certain social context. Because last week we were like, well, it's hard to determine if synergy is the process or if it's the outcome. Excuse me. It builds production and production capability. Instead of a transaction, it's a transformation. They both really want to build the relationship in the process. Okay, next slide. Negative synergy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I one more? So they are very lucky to find they said locate a place, but in some cases there's just no middle ground. You want to go to see a movie. I want to stay home, finish my paper. You just can't. They managed to find. In this case, they managed to find locate a place to camp and fish that will be closer to your mother. It's not always like that. Sometimes it just you know that, right?
Well, there's a structure of values. There's things that are more important than others, right? And so you have to figure out what's important to you and then what's important to the other person,
Right.
and then we can see what's important for each other and be realistic. Is this achievable?
Yeah,
If it's not possible,
Mhm.
then you let it go. That's accepting the change of reality. We have to accept that reality is a changing thing, right?
You know, like someone wants to have a baby, the other wants to focus on career.
Sure. Then you just stay
Yeah.
friends. You find somebody else. Boom, done. Right? There's some things that are distinct amongst us as people, and we can love those things about each other, right? But then there's other needs that if those needs aren't met, you don't have to lose everything. Like I believe in a way that we can have healthy, intimate relationships, even if we have to change the conditions of those relationships, right? Because some of the people that I love, they acted in ways that were very bad. And we can talk about that. But using this model that I talked about in the previous lecture, right? And if they're able to find ways to be healthy and good, then I don't have to completely remove them from my life, right? You can adjust the relationship and still be like civil with each other, you know, and I think they're still part of your community in some ways. Ghosting people is just such a, I don't know. It's hard to ghost people in a small town when you're just going to see them the next day.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right? It's not going to work out for you.
Maybe they see you how you grow up. Maybe they, oh, I know when you were just only 3 years old.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, negative synergy. So we're having a paradigm shift from a dichotomous either or, and the fallacy would be here as a false dichotomy, to the third alternative or the third variable problem. It could be this in psychology, they talk about this as you think it's one or the other, but it was some other factor. That's why correlation does not equal causation, is you don't know what the relationship is unless you test it, right? And so strength of relationships is different points of view. So when we have different points of view, that's good. And if we understand each other's point of view, it makes our relationship stronger, right? Because now I have my perspective and your perspective. Now we have both perspectives, right? And that's the essence of what he means by synergy. Unity and oneness is being complementary and the essence of valuing differences. So he always talks to us about valuing differences, which is just, it sounds kind of contradictory. I think it's perspectives is a better word, because you want to avoid this contradictory, you have to still make sense, right? It has to be philosophical. And being complementary is that synergy, is believing that even though there are different perspectives, we can find something greater if we work together, right? Intrapersonal synergy from within ourselves and is the key to interpersonal synergy. Yeah, and so there's synergy within ourselves and there's synergy with other people. So again, synergy within yourself is the first thing. So you have different views or different perspectives, and then you get a greater view within yourself, right? And that's internal synergy. And then, so this is embodied in the principles of the first 3 habits, allows the development of an abundance mentality. So we talked about that. Need internal security to handle the risk of being open and vulnerable. And we talked about that a little bit last time too, I think. Or maybe that was in the habit 5. And internal security is your sense of self-esteem. That way, when you're being vulnerable, it doesn't feel like you're like bleeding out, you know. Negative synergy, slide 2 of 2. Principle-centered, we become whole and integrated. So again, aligning your self-esteem and your willpower, and the other 4 endowments, I think they were called. Sure. No, it's a different one. Doesn't matter. So anyways, gearing those towards being principle-centered, not being centered towards one specific thing, like your partner, your wife, or your husband, or school, or whatever. You want to always go back to being reasonable and make a decision based on what's best, right? Solving problems needs both logical and creative elements. So he's just going with the right brain, left brain thing in problem solving. It's important, right? So here's an example: is Florida company president communication problems. The wife felt he was not sensitive or considerate. She did not feel he valued the relationship in the same way that she did. He wanted her to explain what she wanted him to do. Issue of him being logical and her being emotional. So Cubby, like this guy, is just like, Cubby, come help with my marital problems. Cubby's like, sure. He probably paid him. I don't know how much he paid him, but he fucking went. And then the husband was just like, tell me what's wrong, basically, and like demanding her. And it wasn't that anything was wrong, it's the way he's acting. He's just kind of being an asshole, right? And she's like, how do I tell you? It's just you just relax. You know, that's all he needed to do. He just needed to like chill out, right? He didn't really understand. So we'll go through the story a little bit. So let's look at the book. 320, seeking the third alternative is a major paradigm shift from the dichotomous either or mentality. You could determine this by the results. There's a difference in results. How much negative energy is typically expended when people try to solve problems or make decisions in an interdependent reality? How much time is spent in confessing other people's sins, pot-licking, rivalry, interpersonal conflict, protecting one's backside, masterminding, and second-guessing? It's like trying to drive down the road with one foot on the gas and the other foot on the brake. Instead of getting a foot off the brake, most people give it more gas. They try to apply more pressure, more eloquence, more logical information to strengthen their position. So they're not being empathetic, right? And seeing they just keep on doing what they want to do instead of seeing what the other person says. Problem is that highly dependent people are trying to succeed in an interdependent reality. Either dependent on borrowing strength from position power, they will go for win-lose, or they're dependent on being popular with others and they go for lose-win. They may talk win-win technique, but they really don't want to listen. They want to manipulate. Synergy can't thrive in that environment. So that's an argument for why it's not good to do those social foul things, right? You could also make a categorical, like Kantian argument too. Insecure people and universalizability. Insecure people think that all reality should be amenable to their paradigms. There's a high need to clone others or mold them into their own thinking. They don't realize the very strength of the relationship is in having another point of view. So that's a very good point. The strength of a relationship is having a different point of view. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself. If you know and are comfortable with what you think, you don't need to have people agree with you all the time, just for the sake of agreeing to make you feel better, right? Other points of view are greater because now I have two views instead of just one. Sameness is not oneness. Uniformity is not unity. Unity or oneness is complementariness, not sameness. So it's like puzzle pieces fitting together, not being the same puzzle piece, but they fit together in some ways. Sameness is uncreative and boring. The essence of synergy is to value the differences. So again, it's like, it sounds a little contradictory. I would think it's like, a better way to say it, but that's fine. The key to interpersonal synergy is intrapersonal synergy, synergy within ourselves. The heart of 321, the heart of intrapersonal synergy is embodied in the principles in the first three habits. Give the internal security sufficient to handle the risks of being open and vulnerable. By internalizing those principles, we develop the abundance mentality of win-win and the authenticity of habit actually supposed to be two. Authenticity is not empathy. That is a completely different thing. You can be authentically empathetic, but in the way that the word's being used here, it actually means habit two. Know what you wanted of life and then do the things that will bring those things in life better. That way you're authentic to yourself, right?
That's right.
If you don't want to be in Iran, don't fucking be there. Don't feel good about that? Then go to where you're going to feel good. But to stay in a place where it's not good, Dave, do you mind? To stay in a place that goes against your values or who you are, right, is not a good thing. And we're over here. Yeah, so habit two. 321. Practical results of being principle-centered makes us whole. One sec. Yeah. Truly integrated. People who are scripted deeply in logical, verbal, left brain thinking will discover how totally inadequate that thinking is in solving problems that require a great deal of creativity. They become aware and begin to open a new script inside their right brain. It's not that the right brain wasn't there, it's just dormant. So again, just Jesus says being creative, so whatever. Muscles had not been developed. Again, he needs to talk about the neurology, just like the neurons that fire together, wire together. So you just have to practice it. There's a left brain emphasis of formal education and social scripting. A person has access to both the intuitive, creative, and visual right brain, the analytical, logical, verbal left brain, then the whole brain is working. Again, psychic, he just means psychological synergy take place in our own head. Psychic is not a good word to use here. Tool best suited to the reality of what life is. Life is not just logical, it's also emotional. Sure, humans have emotions, right? We don't want to anthropomorphize the world, though, give human traits to non-human entities. So he gives this example. He was presenting a seminar, manage from the left, lead from the right, to the president of a company. The president's like, oh, Stephen, this is intriguing. I'm trying to think of it how it applies to my marriage. I have a communication problem. Would you have lunch with us tomorrow? I want you to see how we talk to each other. She's like, sure. So as we sat down, the man turned to his wife and said, help us in our communication with each other. I I know you feel I should be more sensitive and considerate husband. Can you give me some specific thing you think I should do? His dominant left brain wanted facts, figures, specifics, parts. And then she said, well, it's nothing specific. It's more of a general sense I have about priorities. Her dominant right brain, 322, was dealing with sensing and the gestalt, the wholeness of the relationship. And then the husband says, what do you mean? A general feeling about priorities. What do you want me to do? Give me something specific I can get a handle on. She says, it's just a feeling. Her right brain was dealing with images, intuitive feelings. I just don't think our marriage is as important to you as it is to me. Then he says, what can I do to make it more important? I want something concrete and specific to go on. She said, it's hard to put into words. He rolled his eyes and looked at me as if to say, Stephen, can you endure this kind of dumbness in your marriage? She said, it's just a feeling. It's a strong feeling. And then he said to her, honey, that's your problem. The problem with your mother, the problem with every woman I know. So that's not good. It's misogynistic or discriminatory towards women. Right. He began to interrogate her almost if it was illegal. So now it's like flip. Now he got pissed off because he doesn't understand. Right. Do you live where you want to live? She's like, well, that's not it. And then with a forced patience, he said, since you won't tell me exactly what it is, the best way to find out is what it's not. Do you live where you want to live? She said, I guess. And then he's like, Stephen's here for just a few minutes, try to help us. Give us a quick yes or no answer. So he's like commanding her even more. Do you live where you want to live? Yes. Okay. Do you have the things you want to have? Yes. Okay. Do you do the things you want to do? This went on for a little while. It wasn't helping. So Covey intervened. Is this kind of how it goes in your relationship? Every day. The story of our marriage. I looked at the two of them. The thought crossed my mind. They were two half-brain people living together. Do you have any children? 323. 2 children. How do you do it? What do you mean? You were synergistic. That's synergy. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. They valued the differences. I think that was a terrible solution to what they said, right? Like he just assumes that you already know that the seek to understand first, then be understood is involved in synergy. But if you just said, peace, have synergy, that's like that psychobabble thing. He's just saying one thing is a magic pill to solve the problem. It's not like that, right?
No.
Okay, 323. Okay, yeah, so now we're going to go to the next slide.
How?
I don't know. Okay, anyways, I think you need to do a breakdown and talk about it and go through it. You need to spend some time, right? That's what it needs. All right, next slide. The essence of synergy, valuing differences in mental, emotional, and psychological. Okay, sure. The essence of synergy is that's part of habit 5 is seek to understand, right? That's what the differences are. It's not even a difference. It's just you're seeking to see a different perspective. I guess he's saying in maybe some situations, differences come up in negotiation very, very adamantly, or it's very clear that there's a difference. And so he's saying instead of having a negative disposition towards it, look at it as an opportunity for growth. I think that sounds good. That's better, right? Whenever there's a problem, it's an opportunity for growth, right? The key is realizing that people see the world not as it is, but as they are. They see the world through themselves. True effectiveness has humility and reverence to recognize perceptual limitations and appreciate resources from interactions with others. Differences add knowledge and understanding of reality. Okay, this is cool. People can disagree, but both be correct due to psychological interpretations and conditioning. To transcend limits of conditioning, acknowledge possibility that both people can be right. Okay, sure, but they also, one person can be wrong. We just need to be honest with whether we're right or wrong. It's not about just saying everybody wins. We don't want to have that. Slide 2. Value and affirm the other, their perspective through desire to understand and increase awareness. Sure, that's habit 5 though. You're not speaking about this. You put this section in habit 5. That was then that's just an editor's mistake, right? Again. So he gives the example of an animal school. Animals all have different strengths. So this is like a little story he shows. Simplify the school by making all animals learn skills. Some animals are unable to succeed at certain skills because it goes against their nature. This is a really cool story. So it's like the rabbit can't swim as good as the fish. So don't evaluate all animals by swimming because the rabbit necessarily has a disadvantage, right? And we can talk about equity too, or DEI. I think there's some value in that. All right, 323, valuing the differences. Valuing the differences is the essence of synergy, mental, emotional, psychological differences between people. The key to valuing those differences is to realize that all people see the world, but as they are, not as it is. if I think I see the world as it is, there's some Kant in here, you know. Why would I want to value the differences? Why would I even want to bother with someone who's off track? My paradigm is that I'm objective. I see the world as it is. Everyone else is buried by the minute. Minute. I don't know what that word even means. See the larger picture. That's why they call me a supervisor. I have supervision. So that's a very arrogant perspective, and that person's a little drunk on power, right? A little narcissistic right there. Because you're seeing it's condescending, this position of superiority. And you could say it's patronizing, but it depends how they say it. My paradigm, I will never be effectively interdependent or even effectively independent, limited by the paradigms of my own conditioning. So it's just arrogance is a problem. The person who is truly effective has the humility and reverence to recognize their own perceptual limitations and to appreciate the rich resources available through interaction with the hearts and minds of other human beings. Value the differences because those differences add to their knowledge, their understanding, and their understanding of reality. Again, differences is just, you need, I think, perspective, you know, variance in perspective gives us a larger perspective. When we're left to our own experiences, we can consistently suffer from a shortage of data. Very good. It is logical that two people can disagree and can both be right. It's not logical, it's psychological. Again, that's based on perception. So it's very real. He has this young lady, old woman example at the beginning of the book, both looking at the same picture, both of us are right. We interpret them differently because we're conditioned to interpret them differently. Unless we have the value of the differences in our perceptions, we value each other and give credence to the possibility that we're both right. Life is not always a dichotomous either or, so the false dichotomy fallacy. There are almost always third alternatives, and you can also talk about the third variable problem when it comes to correlation causation, right? Never be able to transcend the limits of that conditioning. 324. All I see, I may see the old woman, and I realize you see something else. I value you, I value your perception, I want to understand. Again, he's just habit 5 stuff.
How come his method can be used to solve the, for example, the disputes about abortion in the US?
Well, it's just, what do you conceive a person as? It's fundamentally like down to personhood. And if you take a theological perspective, you can try to justify, like, even before you have coitus, personhood existed because of God's foreknowledge. You can make some crazy ass arguments.
Sorry, I don't understand.
So it's like, you don't even, the man doesn't even have to have his penis inside of the vagina yet, right? But their intention to have sex in 10 minutes was a causal factor to conception when the man ejaculated in the woman and the fetus was fertilized, right? And then that led to the baby. So you could take the line of reasoning all the way back to before it even occurred, you know?
So yeah,
personhood exists because the soul was still existed, and then it became embodied, and so you're not allowed to use contraceptives. That's an argument against condoms.
So you're saying, right, that the key is how do we define a person, right?
Yeah. When does it begin and when does it end? And like, I think there's like heartbeat and some cognitive capacity. You could say that that's like a thing. Usually at the end of the second trimester, almost everybody agrees that it's a person now, you know, but brain functioning would be one thing, similar to how we measure whether somebody's alive still or whether they've died. There's cardiac arrest or brain functioning, you know, like, are the internal organs failed, right? And then there's like you talk about being brain dead and in a vegetative state, different things. Are you still a person if you're brain dead? Like, we can talk about the same person, quality of personhood. So yeah, that's a problem of habit 5, fundamentally. Well, not even habit 5. It's a problem of like making sense of what you think is real, which I guess could be like, you could go right back to being proactive. You know?
Yeah, because he's talking about valuing difference here, because on the abortion issues, that both sides, you know, the left and right, they all have their own opinion and differences. So how do you use his method of valuing the difference and come up with it? You know?
The valuing the differences comes from the perspective that, like, there's different trajectories towards some phenomena or thing. We have different perspectives on a situation, and that creates the synergy. That's necessary for the synergy to even happen, right? But, you know, like, what do you mean by difference? Does it have to be contradictory? Like when he uses this word polarizing, you know what I mean? Like we could both be building a wall and it's synergistic. It doesn't have, like, this difference thing doesn't have to be there, you know, or we're cooking or doing dishes or taking the dogs for a walk, like whatever. But we still have different perspectives, right? I'm looking at it from the left side, you see it from the right side. And together we have both left and right side. You know, it doesn't have to be different. Whereas like abortion, non-abortion, like that's like, it could be like a contradiction. They both can't be true, you know?
So it's different. There's different scenarios.
Well, I think just differences is an oversimplification of what's really going on.
It is.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so I think we're still on 324. When I become aware of the difference in our perceptions, I say, good, you see it differently. Help me see what you see, which is good, right? If you're going for a hike, or if someone's on top of a tree and they can see the whole landscape, like in the first example, beginning with the end in mind, yeah. The guy climbs the tree, can see where the village is, then the people can go towards the village. The guy at the top of the tree has to tell you what they see, which is different than you at the bottom of the forest, right? If two people have the same opinion, one is unnecessary. Not going to do me any good at all to communicate with someone else who sees only the old woman also. Not necessarily. Is that kind of like, I'm like, that's not 100% true because everything's a little bit different, right? I don't want to talk to communicate with someone who agrees with me. I want to communicate with you because you see it differently. I value the difference. Yeah. I don't know. I just think he's just trying to like, I think because people come at it from this adversarial thing. He's really saying this is like, let's not be adversarial, right?
Adversarial, please?
Adversarial is we're against each other. Differences means that I win, you lose, right? Because he's in the business world. And so there's a lot of that, like in the way that markets work and capitalism and stuff. Increase my own awareness. I affirm you. I give you psychological air, the ability to talk and express yourself. I take my foot off the brake and release the negative energy you may have invested in defending a particular position, not letting them speak, for example. The brake is in letting them express themselves, right? I create an environment for synergy. I create an environment to achieve synergy. I think synergy is the output, not necessarily the process. Importance of valuing the difference is captured in this fable called The Animal School by this guy named Dr. R.H. Reeves. So the animals decide they must do something heroic to meet the problems of the new world. They organized a school. They adopted an activity curriculum consisting of running, climbing, swimming, and flying. The duck was excellent in swimming, better than the instructor, made excellent grades in flying, poor at running. He was low in running, so he had to stay after school and also drop out of swimming to practice running. Kept up until his webbed feet were so badly worn, he was only average in swimming. Average was acceptable in the school. Nobody worried about that except the duck. The rabbit was the top of the class in running, broke down, have a nervous breakdown because he had to make up in swimming. The squirrel was good in climbing, developed frustrations in flying. Teacher made him start from the ground up instead of from the treetop down. Developed a Charlie horse, overextending. He got a C in climbing and a D in running. So it's just a minimization of all excellence in specific areas because of this value for everyone doing the same thing, right? This is an argument against some kind of a DEI thing. Or maybe it's an argument for and against. It depends on how you interpret it. Because you can interpret differences and allow people to excel in those differences, or you can say that we're not going to allow differences, let everybody be the same, right? So it depends on like if you're using it as a means to like entrance exams. If you want to lower entrance exams to allow people that might not have the best education or something that get into some profession, but then that lowers the quality of the profession. That's an argument people give. I don't know why it does this. I really don't know. Like I have one button. All right, it was on. I don't know what else to do.
What exactly the DEI promotes?
Well, they're trying to make things equal of opportunity and reduce systemic racism. Explicit, but like they're trying to combat systemic racism. And so they just say, let's just evenly distribute based on ethnicity. But it's like how, like if there's only 6 positions and I come from Barbados and I say the Barbados nation is not being represented, you know? It doesn't make like how do you define what those things are, right? Or how many genders are there? You can't just say man and woman now. You have to have like man, woman, and question mark. You know what I mean? Like trans or whatever you want to say.
So if we are selecting a pilot, do we value the pilots driving the plane, the skill of driving a plane, or do we look at, if he's from some, he has to be represented from.
Could be yeah. It's what's more important, just making sure a minority is there, independent of merit, or making sure merit is there, independent of minority, or whatever.
Right. So what does DI wants? DI wants say,
maybe they'll say there's enough people of merit, so we can now that we're rich and people of skill, we can just give jobs to people. We can prioritize people that usually don't get jobs. And there is evidence to say that people of color, for example, or from a different ethnic background, just by where they live or their names on a resume, they're less likely to get hired. But you could always just remove the name and their address as a method to make it so that the merit is not being compromised. That way it's a bit more, it's like a double-blind study.
So Harvard once said, well, I don't know, maybe some university, maybe not Harvard. They say, when we accept the students, we have to accept it according to some ratio. Like, I have to have certain, from this group, I have a certain percentage on it. Doesn't matter.
I don't know, man.
Is that DEI?
Yeah, it is. But it just seems like that's what racism is, to treat somebody differently based on their race. An anti-race implementation is actually racist. Doesn't make sense. I don't know. Anyways, let's continue. The eagle was a problem child, disciplined severely, climbing classes, beat all the others, and got to the top of the tree, using his own way of getting there. At the end of the year, the abnormal eel could swim exceedingly well, could also run, climb, and fly, but had the highest average, whatever, doesn't matter. So it's all these, so just basically what he's trying to say with the story is just that there's people of different skills, and it's better to let them like master their own skill set and not make them spend time on other things if those other things aren't very good, right? Because then your excellence and your area of mastery will be reduced because you're kind of waste time on things that you're just not good at, right?
So that reminds me of this strategy actually is the globalization strategy. Like if like the economy these days, if Bahama is famous for producing bananas, then Canada that no need to produce bananas by themselves. They just import it from Bahama.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
That's the increase. That's the benefit everybody. Yeah. But now they're facing an issue, because a lot of the that's what Trump said. They said all those factories goes to China, goes to Southeast Asia. So now the American worker don't have jobs, and then actually, but also because those countries are controlled by dictators.
You're funding the dictators.
Yeah.
It's a good. Well, but I don't know. Like I think that there's like the dictatorship could change. The people will always be there. And you will harm the people if you don't trade with them.
Right, but they also benefit the dictators.
It's true.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's why they say make America great again is to bring back the factory to U.S. so that the those states like in Michigan, in I don't know those what do you call it, iron. There's a name for those states that used to be prosperous, but then the factory went to other parts of the world, and J.D. Vance was kind of the representative of that. But so basically, what I'm saying, the strategy you're talking about here, let all the people, but in the globalization, some people criticize, what globalization bring us, it benefit those bankers in Wall Street. They are rich, and also they ship all the work opportunities to other parts. It also hurts Canada because the low wages, the workers, of course, the owner, the capitalist that wants to open factory there. They don't even have union there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could argue just trading with it's whatever you value, whatever is cheapest or quality. If the dictatorship has the best stuff, are you still going to buy it? Or you could base your judgment on the political situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not that simple. I'm just saying.
like the microchips come from Taiwan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not going to change that unless somebody else has equivalent or better technology.
Right.
Right.
Microchip and Trump said, Taiwan should either move their factories to Texas, or pay some protection fee. Whatever.
Well, it's just
That's what's
war with China
Yeah.
for the rest of your
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
Anyways, okay,
Nothing's free.
we're at 325. So I'm thinking we're just gonna like start on 325 next week. So I'm not rushing through the last bit of this. We made some progress today. I got through almost 10 pages. That was, I had to talk about that. I think that was important to just get it out and communicate it. But yeah, I think it was good today. Do you guys online everything you wanted to contribute before I shut the portal down?
What page are you guys on?
Which one?
Which page are you guys on?
In this copy or the other, which copy? This one?
The newer one, yeah.
Okay. 325. We just ended on 325. The next, we'll be starting at force field analysis next week.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll try and catch up.
I don't know if you were here. Were you here for the previous talk?
Last week?
No, this one on the board behind me.
No, I came late.
Okay, so I would suggest watching it. It was really good.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
You saw it though,
It was good. It was good. Yeah, thank you. And,
yeah. How are you guys doing? You guys okay?
Perfect. I love the board.
We should have a Philosophy Society Christmas potluck.
Ooh, good idea.
Sure.
Natalia, that's like you're like I don't know. I just feel that you would be good at that.
Yeah, I know. That's my field.